In today's video, I'm going to be taking you along with us as we do a week's worth of our Sunlight History Bible Literature Level E program. Hi everyone, welcome to our homeschool table. My name is Jerilyn. I am a mom of 3 kids, ages 10, 3, and 1. We've been homeschooling for 6 years now since my daughter was in kindergarten, and we have been using the Sunlight History Bible Literature program since she was in 1st grade. This year we are doing the Sunlight Level E program, which is the 2nd year of American history. And I've been getting some questions about how long this program takes to complete on kind of a daily or weekly basis. So I thought I would try to film a little bit of a week in the life of doing Sunlight. So here is the real state of my dining room. It's a little bit of a disaster, but it's Monday morning and we're getting everything back on track from the weekend. So here are all of the things laid out. I laid this out last night because I wanted to be ready. I do that probably about half the time, but I really do think it helps me in the morning to kind of get started a little bit easier. So I have my blue basket over here. This is where I keep all of the Sunlight materials and anything else that I use for my morning basket or morning time here in this blue basket, and it hangs out over on a shelf when I'm not using it. But I've already pulled out lots of things that we are going to be using this morning. And as you can see here, we are on week 17, and we have the Bible section here first. Then we have the history and geography section, and then read alouds and readers. Now, I do check off boxes when we finish things, and you'll notice here that we already have Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry checked off, and that's because my daughter listened to that on audiobook already, and she finished it much quicker than the actual schedule. Plus, then we have the readers, and she's already read All of a Kind Family because that's just who she is. She reads through everything a lot quicker sometimes than what is in the guide here. Of course, everything that has to do with me takes longer. But this is what we're going to be working on. Now, you'll notice here in the Bible section, we're working on Stuck Like Glue, and we actually need to finish the chapter from last week. So we're going to be working on chapter 4. We'll probably do chapter 5 on Wednesday or Thursday. Case for Christ, this only happens once a week. And then we have a student reading, a parent reading, memorization, and Sing the Word, which is a song that we listen to. And I actually use it on my phone, not on the CD. So you probably won't actually hear that happening, but we'll let you know that it happened. Then this week we only have one chapter of Landmark History, and that's the book that I read aloud to my daughter. My daughter is going to be doing the visual encyclopedia on her own, as well as the World Wars book. Then we have Songs About America. This is an audio file that you get when you purchase your History Bible Literature program with Level E. It's not a physical CD. It just comes in the audio form, and you can download it onto any of your devices. So we're going to listen to that. We are working on the Star Spangled Banner this week. We don't have the lap book kit. I'm not a crafty mom, so I don't buy that. I tried one year and decided never again. Are we going to do that? And then, of course, I've already talked about this. She's already finished reading the read aloud and the reader. Okay, so now that I'm all ready to go, I have everything laid out and ready. I'm going to go cut some apples and get some snacks and bring everybody to the table.
Snow today, and thank you for eating yummy snack and in your name. Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you that we get to do wonderful together, and thank you that it will hopefully snow tomorrow or today, and help us have a good rest of our day. In Jesus' name,
Amen. Okay, so we're going to start with starting strong, and we are actually doing last week's chapter because for some reason we got behind. So this is called On the Outside Looking In, and this is still the section about friendships. Finally, the day was here. Lisa's class was going to an international art exhibit downtown. Not that art was all that exciting, but afterwards there was the promise of hamburgers and French fries under the golden arches. Lisa finally gave up and hung around the edges of another girl's twosome. She didn't want to ride home from the art exhibit with Stephanie and Rachel, so she rode on the school bus by herself, staring blankly out the window as gray skyscrapers turned into green lawns. Feeling left out is no fun. Everybody at one time or the other has felt a little bit like Lisa. The fancy word for that feeling is rejection. Another way of saying you were left out is that you got the cold shoulder treatment. Have you ever heard that before? If someone gives you the cold shoulder, it just kind of means that they snub you and don't want to talk to you. But did you know that Jesus experienced rejection, lots of it, in fact? He understands exactly what we feel. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Sleep and take your rest later on. See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." So how did Jesus' best friends respond to him?
His disciples.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were asleep, and he came back, and they didn't wake up. But Jesus woke them up, and he said they were tired.
Mm-hmm. As the soldiers were leading Jesus away, what did his friends do? This is a little bit later on in verse 56. It says, "But all this has taken place that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples left him and fled." So as they led him away, what did they do?
Fled.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter tried to cut off one of the soldiers' ears, but Jesus healed it.
Mm-hmm.
And told Peter to put his sword away.
Yes, that is in part of the section that we didn't read yet. All right.
Did
Number
Jesus
2.
died?
Yes, he was crucified on the cross. So we went ahead and stopped after the third question, and then we will do questions 4 through 8 probably on Wednesday. Now we are going to listen to 2 Chronicles 22 on my YouVersion Bible app, and then we'll be back to work on Psalm 19 for memorization. Okay, so we just listened to 2 Chronicles 22, and now we are going to do the verse memory, which is Psalm 19. So I made these little weekly printouts, and this is the last week that we're adding on to Psalm 19. It's 14 verses, and this has taken the last 6 weeks, I think. So it's been quite a while. So I'm just going to hand this over to my daughter, and she will read it to us.
Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words, whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom leaving. We finally finished memorization and the Sing the Word Heavens Declare song. That's kind of a longer song. Well, I guess it's not that much longer than all the other ones. They're just kind of longer because they're usually longer passages that we're working on. So total so far for Bible time has taken us about 25 minutes. And I would say that's maybe a little bit longer than other days. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. But our Bible time is finished now, and we've had our snacks. Now we are going to go ahead and go work on some other things before we come back and work on our history readings.
So we never got back to our history reading for yesterday. So now today is Tuesday, and we are going to start at the history section instead of the Bible section like we usually do. Yesterday we did about half of the Stuck Like Glue chapter 4, and so we're going to do the other half today. We did Job 2 and 2 Chronicles 22 memorization and the song. And so my daughter already read the World Wars, pages 118 to 121. And now we're going to do the landmark history of the American people, chapter 32. Okay, so today we are reading chapter 32, and it's called Winning a War, Losing a Peace. When the United States entered World War I in April 1917, its allies had almost lost. the Europeans were fighting their land war in a new way. The United States never joined Wilson's League of Nations. Wilson was saddened that the American people chose a barren independence, but he did not give us hope that what a union of states had accomplished in North America, a union of nations might someday accomplish for the whole world. Okay, that's the end of chapter 32. So that actually took us 30 minutes to complete, but because we had two major interruptions that took at least 5 minutes each. So that really took about 20 minutes of reading. Okay, so next would be read alouds. And my daughter actually read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry on audiobook recently instead of me reading it aloud to her. And we are actually finishing up a letter to Mrs. Roosevelt that we started 2 weeks ago, I think, and we got a little behind on that. So we are going to do that next. Chapter 12 is called Victory Medal. As usual, Charlie was snoring away, only this time he had cried himself to sleep on my bed. I sat on the floor and continued to scan the newspapers. I knew Mama and Papa would talk once they thought Charlie and I were asleep. It was hard to think about my assignment, so I quietly turned the pages of the newspaper and looked at the pictures. One photo in particular caught my attention. It was a picture of some woman seated around Mrs. Roosevelt. The article underneath was written by E.D. Kirby. It mentioned that Mrs. Roosevelt had held a press conference for women journalists just 2 days after her husband's inauguration. Chapter 13, Tuesday. My letter is done, Margot. Rosa leaned over my school desk and looked at me as if she expected me to announce the same. The truth was that I hadn't even thought about the assignment after Papa had given me the medal. I slept with it under my pillow. Now it was tucked in the pocket of my dress. I intended to keep it with me all the time. So I just got done reading 4 chapters in A Letter to Mrs. Roosevelt, and that is about how many were scheduled when this book was the current read aloud in the program. So that's what we did today, and we will hopefully get back to reading the rest of this book tomorrow. I think there's only a few, there's only 5 chapters left. It's a very small book. So that's where we're at for read aloud. The read aloud took about 25 minutes with one small interruption, so probably about 23 minutes to read the 4 chapters for a day's worth of reading in this book. Let's see. The next thing that we are going to work on is our Starting Strong devotional. And so we are going to finish. So we are going to finish the next couple of questions that this book has for actually last week's reading. And then probably on Thursday, we will read the one that's for this week. Okay, so this is the part that we read in Matthew 26. About when Jesus experienced rejection. Okay, so the Old Testament, question number 4, the Old Testament prophet Isaiah tells how everyone responded to Jesus. Read Isaiah 53, 2 and 3, which says, "For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not." So how well liked was Jesus? What did people think about him?
Well, I mean, some people thought he was like terrible, and other people thought he was good.
And what did it talk about in Isaiah there? Because he was saying what was going to become.
Well, people were gonna try to kill him.
He would be despised and rejected. And did that actually happen?
Yes.
The Bible says that God can understand exactly the way we feel when friends fail us. Read Hebrews 4, 14 through 16. Hebrews 4. So this is Jesus the great high priest. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So, what should we do when we feel rejected by a friend? Okay, so we just finished starting strong questions. I think it took about 5 or 6 minutes to go through the rest of chapter 4s for yesterday, for what we started yesterday. And so tomorrow we're going to do the case for Christ during our Bible time, which is something that's only scheduled once per week. And then on Thursday, we will go back to this because we were a week behind. So that is the plan for today. And the next thing we're going to do is listen to 2 Chronicles 23. Okay, so we just finished listening to the Bible reading, and my daughter read through the Psalm 19 memorization, and that took about 8 minutes total for both of those things. So now we are done for today with our Sonlight work. We actually did all the things that I had intended to do today, so that's really great. So I took some notes today on how long everything was taking us, and we started out with reading the landmark history of the American people, and that took us about 20 minutes total with all of our interruptions. And then it takes about 5 minutes for my daughter to read the visual encyclopedia. Then we spent 20 minutes reading our read aloud for today, which was a letter to Mrs. Roosevelt. And then we took about 5 minutes doing the rest of the questions from the devotional that we started yesterday and starting strong. And then it took about 8 minutes to listen to the Bible reading in Chronicles and have my daughter read through Psalm 19 for her memorization. So that took about 58 minutes total to do all of the things for Sonlight for today. And now we are going to head on to do our other school things for today. Okay, today is Wednesday, and we are going to be working on day 3 right here. So we are going to be first reading chapter 4 of Case for Christ. My daughter already did her student reading of Job 18. We are going to be listening to 2 Chronicles 24 on our audio Bible app. We're going to practice Psalm 19. This is the last week of that, and then listen to the song. And then my daughter is going to read the visual encyclopedia pages on her own, and we're going to listen to the Star Spangled Banner. We are working on a different read aloud than is on the plan because we haven't finished it yet. It is a letter to Mrs. Roosevelt, and so we're going to be finishing up the last several chapters today. And we're also going to read our poetry for the week from How to Eat a Poem. So far, we started at 11:06 today. And it took us about 6 minutes to do the Bible reading section in 2 Chronicles 24. And now I'm going to be reading our chapter of Case for Christ for Kids. So we are on chapter 4, and this is called Don't Believe Everything You Read. So you're with your mom, waiting in the checkout line at the grocery store. There are magazines and a couple of colorful newspapers. Wow, look at the news. It's been a busy day for current events. Aliens have abducted the President of the United States and replaced him with a body double. Mom says, don't believe everything you read. Parents like to say that because, well, it's true. Being written down doesn't make something true, and that's exactly where we find ourselves in searching for the truth about Jesus. The Bible's claims about Jesus are much more incredible than any claim about a wolf boy in Montana. The Bible's claims are about miracles, reversing death, and fulfilling 700-year-old prophecies. There's enough stuff there to keep the grocery store papers busy for months. The claims are written down, but are they trustworthy? Question: when you hear different stories, how do you decide who's telling the truth? What kinds of things do you consider? This is certainly the case with the four Gospels. On every key point, they agree. On the little things, they sometimes offer different perspectives and details. So that was chapter 4, and the next one is called It's a Conspiracy. Okay. So that is done for this week. And now it's time for memorization. Okay, so we finished the Star Spangled Banner and all of our other Bible and history topics, and it's about 11:42, and there have been some interruptions in there, so it takes a teensy bit less time than that. Now we're going to read How to Eat a Poem. We have page 33 and 34 for this week. Okay, the first one is called The Tiger by William Blake. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? So they rhyme, even though it's actually symmetry, it rhymes symmetry. Interesting. Okay, the next one.
To make a rhyme,
well, it could be a different pronunciation in English. Steam Shovel by Charles Mallam. The dinosaurs are not all dead. I saw one raise its iron head to watch me walking down the road beyond our house today. Its jaws were dripping with a load of earth and grass that it had cropped. It must have heard me where I stopped, snorted white steam my way, and stretched its long neck out to sea, and chewed and grinned quite amiably. Okay, so now we're going to look at the notes for the poetry. So for the tiger, it has a few words to talk about. So symmetry is one side of a thing mirrors the other. So remember, we've talked about that when something is the same on both sides. Mm-hmm. Dread means fear or dislike. Okay, so we finished reading the poems, and now we're going to finish our book, A Letter to Mrs. Roosevelt, and then I will let you know what time we are finished, and that will be it for today. I'll always be your friend, Margot. Rosa looked at me through big tears and ran back to her house. My feet wouldn't move. I could hear Papa's voice inside. I turned to hear Charlie ask, "Who won, Margot?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't move. I couldn't protect my little brother from the bad news. Charlie noticed the car. "Come on, Margot. Mama and Papa will need our help." Well, apparently we have to read one more chapter because it's getting to the really good part because we only have a couple chapters left. So we're going to read one more now. I wrote a letter to Eleanor Roosevelt. I blurted it out, then looked at everybody seated at the table. They just stared at me as if I should explain more. I had to write to somebody for an assignment, so I wrote to Mrs. Roosevelt, I said again. I told her everything that's happened to us. I thought there would be a million questions like why, or what did you think she could do, or even how did you get a letter to Mrs. Roosevelt? Instead, there was dead silence in the room. Okay, we just finished the last chapter that we're going to read for today. We still have 3 more chapters in this book. It's a very small amount of chapters. And we finished the read aloud at about 12:19. So we started all of our Sunlight things at 11:06, and we're done by 12:19. And that was Bible, history, geography, and read aloud. And then, so all we have for tomorrow is our Bible time, and then finishing this read aloud, and doing our timeline figures for our timeline book, and doing a little bit of map work for geography, and then we'll be done for the week. Okay, here we are ready for our Thursday Sunlight readings. And we are going to be working on the Stuck Like Glue Chapter 5 since we were behind a week and we did the Chapter 4 earlier this week. We are going to listen to 2 Chronicles 25 and work on memorization. My daughter will read her visual encyclopedia pages later on. Or did you already do them? She already did them. And then we're going to listen to the Star Spangled Banner. And we're also going to finish up our read aloud that we had from a couple weeks ago, A Letter to Mrs. Roosevelt. So that should be all we have left for this week, except for Bible reading tomorrow. We will do that Bible reading tomorrow, but that will be the only thing. Okay, we are starting with chapter 5 from Starting Strong, Better Than Getting Even. Bob felt a rush of excitement as his class football team gathered into a tight huddle. Today was his day to be quarterback, and he was up to the challenge. For the first 20 minutes, Bob worked his plays well. His team was actually a couple of points ahead. Now, if he could just hold the lead until the bell rang for everyone to return to class. He tried to run right up the middle of the field himself. Question number 1. Friends can be fickle. Your best friend today may not speak to you tomorrow. What do you find yourself tempted to do when a friend treats you in a way that makes you angry? 1 Thessalonians 5:15 says, "See that no one repays anyone evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to everyone." So, what does it say that we should act? How does that verse say that we should act towards someone we feel has treated us in a wrong way?
Kindly.
So should we do the same thing back to them that they did to us?
No.
No, we should do
We should
good
be a
to
good
them.
example.
Even when we don't want to. So we started at 11:15 with prayer and starting strong. Then we took about 8 minutes to do our Bible reading, which we do on audio. And then we listened to the Star Spangled Banner. And then after that, my daughter read verses 1 through 14 of Psalm chapter 19. So now we've kind of finished with most of the Bible and history parts. We are going to do our timeline figures and look at the maps for geography. And then we are going to do our read aloud and we'll be finished. So this is my binder where I keep all of my kind of weekly teacher materials. I have the maps and timeline figures in this little envelope. And then this is also where I have a few weeks of our Sonlight lesson plans. So this is kind of how I organize my things. So now we're going to do the map points and the timeline figures for this week. So I'm just going to get out my little stack. I cut these all apart at the beginning of the year, and then I label them on the back with which week they go with. So I'm just looking for all of the ones that are 17. There's quite a few for this week. And sometimes I need to wind up trimming off some white parts because I didn't really do that at the beginning of the year. So I wound up with 3 of these little envelopes, weeks 1 through 12, 13 through 24, and then 25 through 36. And so I just keep one envelope in here and the rest of them in my main instructor's guide binder. Okay, so which one's first?
League of Nations.
And what?
1920. Should I just put it down?
Yeah. So the timeline figures are nice because they are stickies or stickers. Okay, what's the next one?
1925.
Yes, but what's it called?
Scopes Monkey Trial.
Oh, okay.
Then Charles Lindbergh.
Okay.
1927. Then 1929, Herbert Hoover was president.
So now we're going to work on our map points. And as you can see here in the instructor's guide, there's a little globe anytime there are map points that you need to do. So the way that I do this is I just start over here and I kind of go through. At the end of each section, it says timeline and map points. So we did League of Nations with the timeline. And Warren G. Harding is the president. Did we put him in?
No, he's another guy.
And so this little clock means that that's an optional timeline person, but there's no actual sticker for that. And then right here, it shows the map points. So we have Czechoslovakia in B4. So you're going to, oh, this is actually part of this map on here. So we're going to do the other ones, and then we'll come back. The first one that I see that's on one of our regular maps is down here. So map 1. So find map 1. Okay. You're going to find G8 and tell me what state is there.
Florida.
Good. Okay, and then I want you to find C5 and tell me what city and state is there.
South Dakota, Deadwood, or Wounded Knee.
Okay, let's look a little bit farther south in that same section.
Nebraska.
No, there's something in Wyoming.
Teapot Dome.
Yes, the Teapot Dome scandal in 1924. That was actually an optional timeline point. Okay, last one is G7. What city do you see? New Orleans. And do you know what state that's in? Louisiana. Good. Okay, it's about 11:55 now, which means that we've been working on Bible and history for about, 40 minutes. And the last thing that we have to do is to do our read aloud. So I'm going to read these last 3 chapters, and then we'll let you know how the book is. And then we'll be done for the week. Well, we just finished our read aloud, A Letter to Mrs. Roosevelt, and we both agreed that this might be one of our favorites now. And it even made me get a little teary-eyed. And my daughter wanted me to let you know that almost every read aloud that I read, I get a little teary-eyed. So you know that Sonlight picks really good books for all of us to read, not just us to read to our kids. Well, I hope that seeing how we do our Sonlight curriculum over the course of a week was helpful for you. I hope that you will consider using Sonlight History Bible Literature programs in your future school years. They have always really blessed us, and we have been able to read so many great books because of them. If you have any questions or comments about any of the things that you've seen in this video, please let me know by commenting down below. And if you don't have anything specific to say, you can leave some sort of a history emoji, like a globe or a map or something like that, to show me that you're still here at the end of the video. Don't forget to click the subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you for hanging out with us this week at our homeschool table, and we'll see you next time.